There's an idea that's floated around in male circles for decades. Sometimes it's been seen as a complaint, and sometimes like a joke. And sometimes it's been a fully formed belief system that others have bought into. And it's this. It's that women are the gatekeepers of sex. Perhaps you've heard it before. Um, Maybe you've even believed and said it. It sounds like this. It sounds like she holds the keys and I just have to prove that I'm worth letting in. Or she decides if it happens, I'm just the one who's auditioning. Or women get to choose who gets sex and men just wait and hope. And it's a fairly simple idea. It explains the pain of rejection, and it makes sense of the feeling that connection is always just out of reach. And it offers a kind of emotional shortcut, if you will. If she has the power, then I don't have to question my own. But here's the problem. It's not the whole truth. And building your identity around this belief, it will slowly destroy your ability to build real intimacy. But let's take a closer look together, shall we? The gatekeeper metaphor implies that intimacy is a resource, and it's one that women own. It's one that men must earn. It's one that is guarded and distributed or withheld based on some mysterious criteria that often feels unfair and arbitrary or unspoken. And this metaphor turns a connection into a transaction. It turns vulnerability into this bargaining chip. And it turns women into authority figures and men into petitioners. And when men inevitably experience rejection, this framing only reinforces the narrative. See, they say, I tried to get in and she said no, and that's proof that she's the gatekeeper. But what if we got this backwards, though? What if intimacy isn't a gate? What if it's just a shared space, one that neither gender owns, but both have to build together? The gatekeeper myth does something even far more dangerous. It quietly justifies male disempowerment. Because if women control access, then men never have to ask, am I emotionally safe? Or am I building trust and not just attraction? Or am I showing up with integrity? Or am I just trying to get in? Am I worthy of connection that's not based on looks or on my status, but on presence and care and consistency? You see, when you believe someone else holds all the power, in essence, you stop cultivating your own. And here's the deeper truth. Sexual access is not the same as emotional intimacy. Being let in is not the same as being invited close. Getting laid is not the same as being trusted. Or being wanted is not the same as being safe to love. And when sex is framed as a commodity, we in essence forget what it really is, which is a reflection of mutual trust, a response to emotional congruence. It's a moment that only matters when it's grounded in safety. But let's be honest. It's easy to fall into this belief, especially if you're in pain, if you've experienced rejection, if you've felt invisible, if you've done everything that you could to get it right and still ended up all alone. You might naturally conclude that women are keeping something from you, and you're not imagining the pain. I think it's real. You're not making up the ache, but it's not because you're locked out per se. I think it's because the entire framework is faulty. Because intimacy was never something to be granted. It was always something to be built together. And what's missing from the gatekeeper model is is that mutuality. It imagines that women are holding something and men are chasing it. But in real healthy intimacy, both people are opening. Both people are taking risks. Both people are choosing and being chosen. And when you see intimacy as a one-way transaction, you're always trying to prove that you're worthy enough of getting in. But when you see it as a co-created space, however, it is then that you begin asking the deeper questions, right? Is this the connection that is emotionally mutual? Or do we both feel safe in this connection? Am I showing up for something real, or am I just trying to win someone's approval? Together, let's maybe just explore a little bit of this myth of gatekeeping and how it evolves over time, and also how it connects to male identity as shameful, and why giving your power away to this belief system can be one of the biggest emotional risks that you as a man can take. Because if you want intimacy, the kind that lasts, you have to stop chasing. You have to stop chasing for access and start becoming someone who co-creates safe spaces. So let's trace where this belief comes from together. The idea that women are the gatekeepers of sex and that men are the ones who are seeking it. At first glance, it looks like it could be biological, right? People will point to evolutionary psychology, arguing that the men are wired to pursue and women are wired to protect and to protect the access to their bodies, per se. But those theories, while they may describe ancient patterns at one point, they don't fully explain the emotional consequences of living in that framework today, especially for men who feel like they've been left behind. Because when sex becomes a battlefield where women hold the high ground, men are cast into the perpetual position of inferiority, not just sexually, but existentially. And suddenly, your value isn't rooted in your integrity anymore. It's not rooted in your presence, and it's not rooted even in your wholeness, but it's reduced to how good do you look, or how much status do you bring to the table, or how well do you perform under pressure. If you can pass the right test, you might gain access. And if you don't, well, you're left out. And if this happens enough, it doesn't just hurt, it actually begins to warp your worldview. And this is where resentment can take deep roots. Not because men are inherently bitter, but it's because repeated rejection without healing turns into pain and blame. And it sounds like this. It sounds like she only wants the top 10%. Or women don't see the good guys. No matter how hard I try, I'm still invisible. And you see, underneath all of these beliefs is a deeper ache. The one that says, I don't feel like I get to choose, and I just hope that I get chosen. And that's a profound emotional disempowerment. And when it festers, it becomes toxic, not just to relationships, but to one's identity. Let me slow this down just a little bit more. See, the gatekeeper myth, it hurts everyone. It dehumanizes women. It reduces them to regulators of desire and arbiters of access, rather than full human beings with their own insecurities and their own fears and their own hopes for connection. And it also dehumanizes men in reducing them to approval seekers and to those who have to perform and to those who have to provide value rather than becoming co-creators of intimacy. And so it creates a dynamic where both parties feel utterly unsafe. And women feel objectified while men feel rejected before they even arrive. And this is not intimacy. This is emotional capitalism at its best, isn't it? And it makes everyone feel bankrupt. So what's the alternative? I think the alternative starts with this radical reframing. See, intimacy is not a gate to get through. It's a space to build together. And that means men are not just passive recipients of affection, but you're active participants in this emotional safety building together. You don't have to wait to be chosen. Instead, you become someone who can be trusted. You become someone who listens well and who shows up with consistency and who takes no as clearly as a yes without taking it personal, because not because it gets you in, but because that's who you want to be, regardless of the outcome. Because here's what the gatekeeper metaphor fails to see, and that is intimacy is not about access. Intimacy, it's all about mutual willingness. And willingness is not won, it's offered. It flows when people feel emotionally safe and not manipulated. It deepens when presence replaces performance. It's the kind that thrives when pressure is replaced with patience. And if you treat intimacy as a prize, you'll always feel like you're falling because it doesn't feel safe. But when you see it as a shared space instead, it's then that you stop trying to get in, and then you start asking, how do we build something that's honest together? And this shift does something really powerful to the male identity. In some sense, it restores your sense of agency and reminds you that you are not at the mercy of other people's yes or no. You are an equal, full human being with dignity, with choice, with the power to become someone who brings safety with your presence. That's a powerful asset. You are not a beggar at a gate. Instead, you're a builder of a sacred space. Let's maybe explore now how we want to embody this shift here. What it looks like to move from entitlement to empathy, and from competition to connection. And also let's consider how this transformation can lead to deeper and more lasting intimacy, because being chosen is not the goal. Being known and being safe enough to be let close is where everything begins to change. So let's talk about this shift together. And that shifts from entitlement to empathy, from access to authenticity. Because if you've been living in a story where women hold the keys and you're just hoping to be let in, it's going to take a serious rewiring to see yourself differently. But that rewiring begins with a question. What kind of man do I want to be when no one is watching? Not what do I do or what do I need to say to get picked, not how do I become more attractive, and definitely not what game do I need to play to be let in. But listening again, who am I when no one's watching? Who am I when the goal isn't to get in, but it's showing up with integrity? This is the reframe that changes everything. This is the truth that you can't ignore, and that is you can't shame your way into intimacy. You can't strategize your way into being loved. You can't dominate your way into being trusted. It doesn't work that way. Those methods might get you sex, potentially. They might get you attention, but they don't get you closeness. They won't get you the kind of connection that fills your chest and slows your nervous system down. That kind of intimacy, it only grows when people feel safe. And safety begins with self-awareness. It begins with honoring someone's no, with being honest about your intentions, with releasing a belief that someone owes you or that access to the body is something you have to earn or prove your worth through. So let's name something clearly here. No one owes you intimacy. Not because you're bad, not because no one owes you anything about their emotional and physical openness. I mean, that's not rejection, that's autonomy there. And honoring someone's autonomy is actually not a weakness. That's maturity. But when you respect someone's boundaries, you're not just you're not just being nice. You're actually proving that you're emotionally trustworthy. You're showing that you know how to live with integrity even when the answer is a no. And here's the thing. That's exactly the kind of man that people do feel safe letting close. So, how do you move from chasing access to embodying connection? Here are 3 practices that I want to pose to you that can begin the shift. Number 1, get curious and not competitive. If you're constantly comparing yourself to other men, you'll turn connection into a game and you're always losing. Instead, try asking, what helps someone feel emotionally safe with me? Or what makes me feel grounded when I'm vulnerable? Or what does real trust look like? Not just the chemistry that I was striving for. You see, this curiosity will disarm your ego and soften your posture. Number 2, stop performing and start revealing. You don't need to be charming or confident and cool every second. What you do need, though, is presence. So be the guy who says, I'm nervous, but I want to be honest. Or I'm still learning how to be emotionally available because I'm committed to my growth. Please be patient with me. Or I used to think that women were gatekeepers, and now I'm just realizing that I was afraid to risk being seen without being picked. Statements like these don't get you access. They get you connection. And then thirdly, own your own desire without the entitlement. You see, it's okay to want connection. It's okay to want sex. And it's okay to want closeness. But when that desire becomes a demand, you've already lost the intimacy that you were seeking or craving. So instead, learn to say, I want this, but I honor your right to say no. Or I feel rejected, but I'm not going to project that on you. Or you could say, I want to be close and I'm willing to go slow enough to make it feel safe. This is what emotional responsibility looks like. The irony is when you stop chasing approval, you actually become more attractive. Not because you're manipulating your way into confidence, but because your presence becomes stable. You're no longer swinging between overconfidence and despair, and you're not playing games anymore. You're not trying to win anyone. You're just being you. You're being steady. You're being self-aware. You're being emotionally anchored, and that energy is magnetic. It is a rare expression, and it creates the very kind of safety that intimacy requires. Now, let's maybe explore what all of this looks like over time. How to live as someone who no longer believes in the gatekeeping myth, but instead chooses to see intimacy as something that is co-created moment by moment and with presence and humility and with strength. Because connection is not something that you get, right? Connection is something that you grow from the inside out. So let's just bring all this home, shall we? What happens when you stop seeing intimacy as something that women control, and instead start seeing it as something you co-create instead? Well, you stop living at the mercy of external validation. You stop chasing doors that you were never meant to unlock. And you also stop measuring your worth by how many times you were picked or not. And instead, you begin to build something that's far more sustainable. And it's this way of relating that's rooted in truth with no tactics. It's a way of connecting that starts with presence and not performance. It's a way of loving that asks, not how do I win, but How do I serve you in this space with integrity? And it's this shift that shifts and changes everything. Because here's what no one tells you in the echo chambers that you might be in. And that is, you were never powerless. You were just taught to give your power away. You were taught that your only value was in being wanted. And you were also taught that your only leverage was your status. You were taught that your only strategy was to pursue. But if your greatest power was in your ability to create safety, that's not impressive. It's not seductive. But to simply be someone who can be trusted with closeness, though, this is what we're not talking about enough, I think, and that is intimacy. Intimacy which begins with safety. And safety isn't about being passive in any means. It's not about shrinking. It's not about being bland or boring. No, it's about being the kind of person whose presence it allows others to exhale and relax. Because real intimacy doesn't flourish where there's pressure. It instead flourishes where there is peace. And when you stop framing women as gatekeepers, you also stop turning sex into a transaction. And you stop turning rejection into a proof of failure. And you stop turning your self-worth into a scoreboard. But instead you begin asking, am I living from my values? Am I building the kind of emotional ecosystem where trust is able to grow? And am I becoming the kind of man that I'd want to meet one day? And let's not forget, this isn't just about women, right? It's really about you. It's about your relationship with yourself. It's about your dignity, about your healing, about your capacity to feel at home in your own body, even when you're alone. Because if you still see connection as something that you have to earn through perfection, you'll always feel like you're performing. But when you live with integrity, it's here that you stop asking for permission to matter, because you already do matter. And here's the challenge I want to leave you with. Stop asking, how do I get intimacy? And start asking instead, how do I grow it? Let go of these myths. Let go of the scripts. Let go of the story that says that women hold the power and you just have to measure up. Instead, start asking, how do I bring emotional safety into every space that I enter? How do I respond with grace when I'm told no? How do I remain rooted when I feel unseen? How do I stay open even when I've been hurt before? Because the answer to all of these questions is where your real strength really lives. And no, this path is not easy. It asks more from you than memorizing lines or mimicking charm. It asks you to be real. It asks you to heal. It asks you to look inward before you reach outward. But it also gives more too. It gives you clarity. It gives you peace. It gives you the sense of control that isn't rooted in domination, but instead in alignment. And it allows you to be seen fully and to know that whoever stays is choosing you because it's really you. And that's the deepest kind of power. That's the truest kind of intimacy. So, are women really the gatekeepers? Maybe. Maybe in systems that treat sex like a prize. Maybe in cultures that reduce intimacy to access. But not here. Not in the space where we're building. And not in the world that we're reclaiming together. Because in this space, we're building intimacy collaboratively, right? We're doing it with consent and with courage on display and with care manifested. No one holds the gates. We hold each other. And if we're safe, if we're safe enough, we'll be good company together.